Who's next?
I guess I will. I'm Samael. I'm a tiefling pally. I'm young, 19. Well, 219 technically, but we'll get to that later. I'm 5'10", built like a brick shit house because all I've done for most of my entire life is train. I've got red eyes, black hair that's typically tied back into a top knot, and 2 horns that come out of my forehead and curl back around my head itself.
So you're like a hipster.
Wow.
Shouldn't I have like a whatchamacallit then?
I like the father before it was cool.
and his attacks is throwing records at people.
Exactly. 78.
Drinking fast.
I was actually thinking like physical written records, but just as a play on words. But I love puns, so forgive me.
Damn dad jokes.
Yep. Let's go with Erin next.
Okay. Give me a minute. I'm gonna pick one before I ate my popsicle. God damn.
Mark, why don't you go first?
Alright, I play Malcolm. He's a noble who is also a warlock. He's a warlock whose patron is the Wild Hunt. He is I wouldn't call him an archery champion, but an archery enthusiast. And he is the right hand to Lord Haverford-Drak, Lord General Haverford-Drak. As far as physically, he's kind of a broad-shouldered guy, but not super muscular. He is still just... So he's kind of a skinny guy, but he has bigger shoulders from the draw weight of archery. And red hair, blue eyes. Pretty much exactly like the picture.
Awesome. That give you enough time, Erin?
Yeah, that gave me plenty of time. I got through half my popsicle. I'm happy. So I play the character who is currently known to the party as Sparrow. She is the half-elf rogue. Long, thick red hair, green eyes with gold flecks. If anybody who's watching this has played League of Legends, yes, her picture does look like Katarina, and yes, that's kind of where the inspiration came from. But she usually is decked out in black common clothes with a hood and a face mask so that all you can see is her eyes with a black kerchief over her hair. It's not depicted like that in the picture. I am really picky when it comes to pictures for my characters.
Oh yeah, it took us like a full day to manage to convince her to go with that one.
Yeah, it is. And it sucks, but it is how it is. So this is the one that I found. This is kind of more her when she would come to trust the party and, enough to just be like, okay, this is kind of who I actually am. All that good character development crap that for whatever reason I care about. But normally she's in a face mask and a hood, especially when she's on a job, which she takes very, very seriously, her thieving abilities. So that's all I got.
There we go. All right. So we have all the characters. Is everybody ready to continue?
Yes.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, here we are. So the
Oh, that's not a good sign.
Why are we in here?
I don't know if I had hopes for actress.
So remember how I
reaction
said I was totally excited to do this? I think I might not be.
So all 4 of you, 5 of you, are standing around the edge of the crater that has formed, and there are 5. Give me a moment. I will
It looks
explain.
roughly the size of 2 priests and 2 soldiers.
Hey, actress made it up. We don't know how yet. Just give it time.
Give it time. Give it time. So the 4 of you are standing around in the middle of yet another blighted village. The Lord General Haverford-Drak. Can you guys see that hand up? Okay, if that's it, then no, you can't see it.
Nope.
Hold on a moment.
No.
Something just popped up on mine.
Yep. So
Yeah.
that's the handout.
Stannis.
That
Harassing
looks.
He does look like
weirdly
Stannis.
him.
So
no, you know who
the
that looks like? That looks like Fire Lord Zuko without the scar.
I don't know. I think he's got more of a square chin than Zuko does.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the 5 of you are standing quite literally at the edge of a crater that sinks down probably a good 15 feet. It's almost perfectly circular except for the mounds of dust and ash that are around it. Every single one of you has an improvised, a professional-looking, almost like a plague doctor's mask that has cotton stuffed in it.
Do I?
Like from the Dark Ages?
Yes, you do. Yeah, like from the Dark Ages. Basically,
So
it's
they've got
a
the long,
filter.
like, conal nasal
Yep.
thing?
Well, because
Okay.
the plague doctors back in the day, back in our day, believed that a remedy to plague was to stuff basically a breathing tube that extends away from your face and fill it with herbs and nice
Yeah, they had,
smelling
like,
things.
incense and stuff in it.
Exactly, and that would prevent the plague from getting to them. Well, this is a little different. This is stuffed with cotton. There is a little bit of incense in it. There's a little bit of oil in it to make it smell good. But basically, it's a filter. It has become pretty common practice to see anybody that's going through blighted areas to be carrying these masks and wearing them so that they themselves don't become afflicted. You have... and you're all just kind of standing there in silence. Drak himself is not a man of a lot of words. He's usually pretty succinct when he starts talking, that you've managed to pick up over your rushed entrance over here. But even now, it seems almost solemn as he's kind of staring down at it. The place is eerie. Like, just straight up. Some of the buildings have collapsed into piles of ash, but most of them still stand. There is no wildlife in the area. You cannot hear anything. Even Malcolm, your, even closer attachment to nature is gone. Like, you feel probably the eeriest out of all of them because there's just nothing here. So as you finally, after a moment of silence, the Lord General looks up at you all and says, "This, ladies and gentlemen, is why I've brought you into my service. This is a travesty. This happened to my city, this happened to 2 other villages, and now it struck here."
So we're in the same city. Are we in Stromness?
No, you're not in Stromness. You're in the same... You're in,
We're in Kyrol, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You're in Kyrol. Yep.
Malcolm.
He
Probably.
shuffled you down here. The 4 of you met up in his keep, and almost within the same hour, you heard that this occurred. And whatever the Lord General was planning for you for was thrown out the window. He basically shuffled you into carriages, and you've been riding for about 2 days straight to get here. And this
Did
is
we
what's-
encounter any of the monsters as we came through the town?
Nope, there was a nice heavy guard riding with you. They're currently
so
outside
they
of the
did the work.
blighted area. You see a few of them kind of scouting around. There's tear-down parties around the area. Not parties as in woo, but like groups of people parties. Kind of like...
Maybe they are happy about it.
like expertly knocking down the buildings, clearing everything out of it, kind of smashing the corpses to bits just in case. There are no more shadows in the area. They've been taken care of. And at this point, everybody's just really on edge. Nobody wants to be here. That there are people that are working here that have been blighted. People that have breathed in too much of the ash themselves, and they really have nothing else to live for. Because once you breathe in the ash and it starts to spread, it kills you quickly within months.
Cuff, cuff.
They start to develop black veins that crawl outward from their torso. Once it reaches past your eyes, generally you have about a few days left until you collapse, and a shadow rises from you, and you basically turn into one of those corpses. So nobody really understands how it works. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of hearsay, telling, but everybody knows what a blighted is. So the Lord General looks back around and kind of sweeps his hand around, not in a grand emotion, but more of a matter of fact. Everything this man does is to the point. He says, this is what we need to fight. I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how much personally it costs. I will do everything in my power to make sure that this doesn't occur again. And I want you to help me, which is why I've brought you here. I can't do this by myself anymore. I've been researching this ever since Stromness has been hit. I've been giving every single ounce of my personal wealth, every favor that I've been able to call in, every book and tome that I've been able to nab from, I've been able to take from the colleges, and I've made almost no progress. And it is single-handedly the most sorrowful thing I've ever encountered, to know that we've encountered something that nobody has even touched. So I need help. I need your help, specifically. I am man enough to admit it, and I hope that you are mature and willing and driven enough to accept my offer.
I don't understand why you would need a thief for this kind of an operation. This seems to sound like something that a holy person would do.
He kind of looks around, and he gets one of those sardonic smiles on his face. And he says, "Do you see the deities at work here?" To me, it looks like they've left.
Samael takes a step forward and says, "Are you sure they've left? Because I've seen similar things to this before, and it's supposedly their handiwork."
The point being is I need people with skills that I may not anticipate. We're going to have to delve into manners of research and avenues of investigation that we may not understand. And I can't do that. I can only help from an academic standpoint. I can only help with funding. I can only help from certain aspects. You, however, can get into places that people don't want other people seeing. You can procure funding on your own. You can work independently. These are the traits that I need from a thief like you. From the Drak... Oh, what was it? My apologies.
Dragon's Tempest.
This is why I called upon the Dragon's Tempest from a favor that they owed me from long ago.
And what about me? She said very, coldly.
You can charm. You know people. You know how they act. You know how to twist. And you know how to get what we need.
But I'm not my master.
But he was training you. Obviously, he saw something in you, the same thing I see. And that's why I need it.
The only difference between a student and a master is how much time they've put into it.
You've all met my right-hand man, Malcolm. This is...
Fortunately.
He will be your steward. He will be acting on my behalf to help you. Anything that you need from me, you can ask of him. If it's any point you need instruction, he will give it to you. Are there any questions?
So,
This
you
kills
want us
everyone
to...
it touches? Sorry.
Either one. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, go ahead.
This harms everyone it affects, right?
It kills everyone it touches, yes.
Then you have my...
Sword. Loyalty.
I swear to God, if someone starts saying, and my axe, and my bow, I'm going to shoot someone.
And my whip! No.
We're done.
And episode 1 is over, and we're never picking this up again.
Sorry, guys. I ruined it.
This is all just an elaborate setup.
Take the Lord aside for one moment.
By all means, please.
Okay,
So
Okay, go ahead.
It's all right. He'll kind of welcome you to his side and start walking away from the crater for a moment toward the temple area. None of them have really collapsed yet. They look almost a bit better than the rest of the surrounding area, but they are very much... sorry, my notes keep fucking sliding everywhere. They look a bit better than the rest of it, but it is still shades of gray, you know.
Okay.
So he kind of walks with you on kind of a loop around it. So what do you need from me?
I'm going to be like very upfront because I'm assuming I'm out of ear's reach from everyone else, right?
Yeah, you can assume away.
I'm going to say, okay, I'm assuming away. I'm going to ask, did he know the ringmaster prior?
I knew him by reputation, and that's why I wanted to speak to him.
I'm going to ask, you realize, though, that you and I sit on opposite sides of the spectrum.
I understand. If anything, that will keep me honest to you, because you will be ever suspicious of my intentions. And
there's only one way I'll be willing to help you, is if you help me find out who killed my troop in your city limits.
I anticipated that, and I already have agents searching. I will try to have updates for you when you return to Stromness. I can't guarantee anything, but I will put my resources into helping, as a token of appreciation for your service to me.
Okay. With that, she's not gonna shake or anything. She'll just be like, all right, and then just walk off.
That's fine. He'll give you a few steps before he follows behind.
Cool.
Somebody give me a quick catch up on the chat.
Malcolm and Samael are asking questions and talking, and I've started wandering away from the crater, just looking at the buildings.
Okay. Samuel, what you asking?
I asked how many occurrences, what have you discovered so far? My next question was going to be, have there been any witnesses that have survived and actually witnessed an ashfall occur?
This is the fourth occurrence. And there have been no survivors on any of the occurrences. Which is why...
Because it's a defined border, right? So has anyone outside of that defined border actually witnessed it occur from outside of the border?
Every attempt that we've had to gather them, it seems like the shadows have worked their way outward and sought out anybody in the area.
So it's killed pretty much anyone that was in close proximity to.
By the time that anybody has actually known what's going on, like they know what to look for, if you see a shadow walking around murdering somebody, you can assume it's happened in the area, because it does not happen anywhere else.
Except for Atris, of course. He's, the only living witness.
Oh my god.
We shall see! Okay, so the Lord General walks back and nods to Malcolm. I trust that these will be suitable.
Of course. Couldn't ask for a better team. He says, and he doesn't necessarily sound sincere, but he also doesn't sound like sarcastic.
She rolls her eyes. She knows you're not sincere in her heart.
Yeah, real reassuring there, old man.
Well, hopefully you guys can, you fell... Give me a moment, sorry. Hopefully as you travel together, you can earn each other's companionship, but for the moment, please remain in faith that I will be backing you, regardless of how your interpersonal relationships work out, that this is for a better cause. Please keep that in mind as you go about your quest. This is far too important of a goal to let personal squabbles get in the way. So, what else? You have an entire city of ash surrounding you guys right now.
I've started walking away. I'm going to walk over to the north.
Okay.
And start just kind of like looking at things. At one point, I pull out one of my daggers and just kind of chuck it against the wall to see what happens.
It flies through it. And congratulations, you have caused an entire building to collapse on itself.
Cool.
It just kind of rumbles, then into a rough pile.
Noted.
Samael looks over at that, then just kind of shakes his head, and then he sort of closes his eyes and focuses for a moment. And I'd like to use Divine Sense to see what I feel.
Okay. Can you describe Divine Sense to me real quick?
It's do you mean what it is technically, or?
Yeah.
Well, it's I can tell if anything has been hollowed, or not hollowed.
Hallowed.
Yeah, hallowed. Hold on, let me pull up my character sheet. Write down that.
Know your role, son. Know your role.
Yeah. Class, there it is. Okay. As an action, I can detect the location of any celestial fiend or undead within 60 feet that's not behind total cover. And I can also detect the presence of any place or object that has been consecrated or desecrated within 60 feet.
Within 60 feet, you don't really feel anything.
Okay. So it doesn't. There's no desecration or consecration.
No.
Either.
No.
Okay.
Well, if this is all the questions that you have for me, we will meet again, most likely inside of the Stone Keep, in my study, where I will be continuing my efforts on this end. I will send messengers to you with any information that I find, or through magical means in order to contact you. At this point...
Before you leave, Lord Drak, I'd like to ask a question. What avenues of research have you explored?
I don't know if you know this, but I graduated as one of the top wizards from the college. Dare I say
Which college? I'm afraid I'm a bit out of touch with, the
that's
current
right.
times.
My apologies.
Duh.
The Arcane College, my friend. Graduated from the Arcane College as one of the best wizards that has ever left, with no false sense of humility. People commonly come to me for everything from formulas to potions to other types of avenues of research, and the papers that I've published have, dare I say it, changed how we view magic. However, all of my academic prowess and all of my research abilities have granted me nothing of insight into this event. I have literally gone through years of experiments and tests on the blight, on the ash, on anybody who has been blighted, in order to figure out, within ethics, of course, I would never make any of my constituents suffer. But, again, the answer eludes me. And that's is highly concerning, is the fact that does not seem to be any magic involved.
Have you spoken with the priests, the clerics, to see what their gods said?
Of course. We've explored everything, and nobody is revealing anything.
Okay.
Even Calm has not been able to provide any reference for this. The only thing we can pray is Shadal will continue to overwatch us as we travel from place to place in our quest. But nobody seems to know what's going on. That's where we come in. That's why I hired you. No effort will be too great. No challenge will be impossible. And that's what I ask of you. If you do not feel that this is within your grasp, that this around you, and he kind of motions his hands, does not prompt you to attempt the impossible, then I do ask that you leave. Well, it's heartening that you all have stayed. Your first mission will be to go and procure the services of an artisan from Silver Shore. I believe that he has a unique perspective. I have not heard of him before until now, though the rumors of what he is capable of, simply by thinking from outside of the box, has earned him the ire of many of his own guild. But it might be somebody that might be worth investigating. So I would like you to go up to Silver Shore, please, and retrieve him for me. And then return to Stromness at once.
I'm
Before
sorry.
we leave.
Who are we getting? It was cutting in and out. I apologize.
Sure, I'm sorry. My apologies. You're going to be going to get your other party member.
Oh.
You're going to go get Jake.
We're going to fetch Jacob.
In this
God.
particular case, his name is Estbern Rarak.
So we're going to fetch Jacob.
Estbern.
Hey, Jacob.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I need his services in order to take a look at some of my experiments with the new eye. I've said them among my own circles, but everybody thinks like I do, which is the most frustrating portion of it, is that nobody has a new perspective on it. So I need him.
Before we leave, I'd like to look around a little bit and see what I get a